You have probably been told that a modern computer needs a multi-core processor, gigabytes of dedicated graphics memory, and a massive local storage drive just to handle everyday workflows. That persistent myth cost consumers and institutions billions in unnecessary hardware upgrades for years. Back in 2007, the tech industry tried to fix this overspending problem with the netbook era, spearheaded by compact devices like the Asus Eee PC. These tiny laptops promise portable computing at a fraction of traditional costs, but they failed dramatically. They were bogged down by traditional, local-heavy operating systems that choked on underpowered hardware, leaving users frustrated by agonizing loading times and constant system crashes. The fundamental flaw of those early netbooks was architectural. Pushing a full-fat desktop operating system onto a low-cost machine, stripped of computational muscle, forced the hardware into a perpetual bottleneck. Spinning hard drives struggled with high read and write latencies, while sluggish processor architecture turned simple tasks like rendering a web page or opening a document into a test of patience. The market concluded that cheap laptops were simply unusable toys, cementing the belief that low-cost hardware was an inescapable trap. Enter Google with a radical counter-hypothesis in 2011. Instead of trying to shrink a bloated local operating system to fit low-cost silicon, Google stripped the operating system down to a dynamic browser core and offloaded heavy lifting to cloud computing. By shifting memory allocation and storage burdens away from local components and into remote servers, Google created ChromeOS. This lightweight, Linux kernel baseline discarded decades of legacy code, system registries, and background services that historically clogged entry-level devices. The immediate performance unlock was astonishing. Devices running ChromeOS achieved boot times under 8 seconds, a stark contrast to the minute-long initialization sequences of competing platforms. By utilizing fast flash memory instead of slow-spinning drives and optimizing the system specifically for web standards, even modest hardware felt snappy and responsive. The operating system managed resources so efficiently that lower thermal outputs allowed for fanless designs, dramatically improving battery longevity while eliminating mechanical points of failure. Tech critics initially dismissed the Chromebook as a glorified browser in a plastic shell, missing the structural revolution taking place under the hood. Skeptics argued that a computer without traditional local application storage was useless outside of a reliable internet connection. However, this skepticism ignored a massive, suffering market segment that was desperately searching for a manageable, cost-effective digital solution. The education market. Classrooms at the turn of the decade were operational nightmares for IT administrators. Managing fleets of traditional Windows or Mac laptops required manual device imaging, grueling software patch cycles, and constant hardware troubleshooting. A single malware infection could take an entire cart of laptops offline for days. Schools were spending more time and money maintaining their digital infrastructure than actually using it to teach students. Google engineered the ultimate tactical solution with the Google Admin Console, a centralized management framework built directly into the cloud architecture. Instead of physically touching every laptop to configure settings, an IT manager could deploy thousands of Chromebooks across an entire school district from a single browser tab. Security policies, Wi-Fi credentials, and approved applications could be pushed instantaneously across an enterprise network, turning weeks of deployment labor into a few keystrokes. This back-end orchestration completely transformed the classroom experience through seamless cloud-native profile synchronization. In a traditional setup, if a student broke a laptop, their work was locked on that local drive until a technician recovered it. With ChromeOS, student data lived entirely in the cloud. A user could drop a machine, walk over to a spare unit, log in, and pick up their exact session in seconds. The hardware had officially become stateless and interchangeable. From a pure unit economic standpoint, the value proposition was undeniable. While traditional laptops easily cost $700 or more when factoring in software licensing and enterprise management tools, entry-level Chromebooks arrived at a fraction of that price. School districts could suddenly achieve one-to-one student-device ratios without blowing out their technology budgets. The cost savings extended far beyond the initial checkout counter. To survive the chaotic environment of a middle school classroom, hardware manufacturers had to adapt physically. Partners like Lenovo, Dell, and HP began crafting ruggedized Chromebook chassis featuring rubberized bumpers, spill-resistant keyboards, and reinforced hinges. Because the lightweight OS required less internal cooling apparatus, engineers could use the space savings to strengthen the structural rigidity of the frame, creating budget-friendly powerhouses that could handle drop tests and rough daily handling. Simultaneously, silicon vendors optimized low-power processor architecture specifically for web-based instruction sets. Intel introduced energy-efficient Celeron and Pentium chips designed for high single-thread efficiency in web tasks, while MediaTek provided ARM-based processors that delivered incredible battery life. These chips minimized memory access latency for active browser tabs, allowing multitasking without requiring expensive high-capacity memory configurations. Market data tracking educational technology adoption showed a seismic shift between 2012 and 2020. According to industry reports from FutureSource Consulting, ChromeOS swept through K-12 education, capturing over 60% of the United States market share while leaving legacy platforms scrambling to maintain relevance. What started as a niche experiment had rapidly transformed into the dominant computing standard for an entire generation of students. Panicked by this massive shift, rival tech giants launched retaliatory software initiatives designed to reclaim market share. Microsoft introduced stripped-down versions like Windows 10s, attempting to lock down their system while running on low-cost hardware. Yet these efforts repeatedly faltered because they remained tied to a legacy system core that demanded far more system resources than low-cost silicon could comfortably provide without introducing noticeable input lag and administrative overhead. Beyond sheer speed and affordability, ChromeOS redefined digital security through isolated application sandboxing and verified boot protocols. Every web page and application ran in a self-contained environment, preventing malicious code from executing across the system kernel. If malware somehow modified the core system files, the verified boot sequence detected the corruption at startup and restored the operating system from a clean backup partition automatically. As web development evolved, the platform expanded its utility far beyond basic web browsing. Through the integration of progressive web apps and native Android app support, ChromeOS bridged the software gap that previously limited budget devices. Offline document editing, creative tools, and local media playback became standard features, silencing early criticisms about connectivity reliance while preserving the core speed and simplicity of the system. This evolutionary arc completely reshaped how modern consumers define computing performance. The assumption that you need high-end local specifications to accomplish daily tasks evaporated as cloud infrastructure matured. For web navigation, productivity software, media consumption, and collaborative communication, a streamlined cloud-native device delivered 95% of the utility of a high-end workstation at a small fraction of the cost. When evaluating total cost of ownership, the true financial advantage of this model becomes crystal clear. Industry analyses confirmed that lower deployment overhead, minimal maintenance requirements, and zero virus remediation expenses reduced institutional IT costs by up to 70% per device over a 3-year life cycle. This allowed educational institutions and businesses to redirect millions of dollars from routine system maintenance directly back into core operations. When sudden global shifts forced tens of millions of students into remote learning environments overnight, this cloud infrastructure proved its resilience. While legacy supply chains struggled to deliver fully configured traditional PCs, districts deployed hundreds of thousands of pre-configured Chromebooks directly to families' homes. Students simply opened the lid, entered their credentials, and were immediately connected to their virtual classrooms without complex local network setup. Today, the maturation of ChromeOS has trickled upward into premium consumer hardware. High-end devices now incorporate vibrant displays with high refresh rates, ultra-fast NVMe SSD storage, and premium aluminum construction. These premium powerhouses demonstrate that cloud-native computing is not just a compromise for tight budgets, but an inherently superior architectural choice for users who prioritize speed, simplicity, and zero-maintenance overhead. An entire generation has now grown up with cloud-native workflows as their primary digital language. These users expect instantaneous software deployment, effortless background updates, and complete file availability across any device they touch. As this workforce enters the professional world, enterprise environments are increasingly adopting lightweight, cloud-managed endpoints to match these established expectations and boost corporate security standards. The broader tech industry has felt the ripple effects of this transformation, forcing traditional desktop platforms to adopt web-first strategies and cloud synchronization. WebAssembly, cloud gaming platforms, and browser-based creative tools now allow demanding applications to run smoothly inside a standard browser tab. Google's early structural gamble fundamentally altered the trajectory of modern software development, proving that local silicon is no longer the sole arbiter of software performance. Understanding this transition unlocks king-tier insight for your own tech purchasing decisions. You do not always need to pay a premium for massive local storage or overkill processor specs when an optimized cloud-centric system can execute your daily tasks with zero friction and maximum battery life. By aligning your hardware investments with your actual functional requirements, you can stop overpaying for unneeded overhead and claim true mastery over your digital toolkit.